isn't it amazing that a guy who seems basically emotionless,
Yeah.
except for when he feels like he wants to connect with the jury,
Yep.
that the same guy is like, Speedy Gonzalez when it comes to remarrying,
Yeah. Yes.
right? I mean, there's no, like, he's got, a full family there with
Yeah.
all these children, and
Yeah.
this guy seems, if you look at him in court, and he's like the most lethargic
Yes.
seeming creature.
Yeah.
You
There's
know,
nothing
for
there.
lack of it, I mean, there's just like, are you here? Are you, I mean, just his behavior shows me he's a fantasist. Okay, I'm going to set that aside because that's like a very strong opinion. But I'm going to say that isn't it hard if you're the jury looking at this guy who does not smile, he doesn't really do anything. He seems very busy at some paperwork, but he comes across and it's kind of like a sloth. Like the guy is
Yeah.
lethargic, and he finds a new wife in 2 weeks. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and the thing is that I mean, obviously they had met each other. I think it's established that there was a relationship that had built and whatever. But
Right.
this does not strike me as the guy who is at the altar. So, is this person who is the kind of person who, when they're grieving, do you think they become more, you know,
Hmm.
slow, like slower? Do they become slower? Do they become even more, you know, uh, innervated?
Yeah.
You know, I would think so. You know, if I was sitting there, I would be like, how do I match the guy who is sitting here, like picking up paper clips, who moves like in one motion? Like,
Yeah.
the guy's head doesn't turn on its own, it seems. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And he's married within a few weeks of his untimely death of his wife. Like,
Yeah.
I can't put those two things together. So that tells me if I'm just sitting there and I'm not even paying attention to the coroner, except for the basic facts, which
Yeah.
even seem questionable, I
Mm-hmm.
must admit is if I were on the jury, I would definitely be trying to match this guy who I'm seeing,
Yeah.
right? And the activity that happens after Tammy's passing.
Yep.
Like, I'm really sorry. Oh, I don't want to be offensive, but I can't even imagine that this guy would be the guy to bring the form in for the insurance or to even collect the insurance. I think he's the kind of guy who sends the wife.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest. He strikes me as that kind of character. Like, you take care of it.
Yeah. To me, it was a sign of not having remorse, and the same, like how you're the. I'm losing the words. How it doesn't fit that this guy who's basically emotionless and motionless, and suddenly he's sprung into action to marry Laurie. I felt like I saw some of that when some of the witnesses were testifying, and he's just sitting there like a statue, and suddenly he thinks of something he has to tell prior, like in his defense, and he just moves, and there's suddenly so much movement, and he's whispering, and he comes alive, which
Well, I think that's a good point. Like, I mean, I would say it like this, that phrase, come alive. I think
yeah,
that is, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. At least, let's say this. That's the thing that's running in the background for me when I'm watching this trial.
mm,
And because I'm like, is this guy, so he has a very rich interior life, a guy who's writing, Grab Me by the Storm and, all this. And you're looking at this guy and it's like at the table and you're just trying to say, this is coming from this guy.
yeah, doesn't fit.
So that just shows me that there's, two people here at least.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I wonder how the jury is, trying to integrate that.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when they have the front facing view. It's not even like they're off to the side, which also is interesting to me.
I mean, the difficulty is that the camera angle and the distance from the defense table it is really kind of hard unless you are looking at it, on a large screen TV or something to really look at its facial expressions.
Yeah, true. True.
Mm. So I'm not really sure what to think.
Mm.
I really do wonder. I mean, we, we watched the Rory Vallow trial. I wonder if these jurors who have not seen Chad, what they make of it, because we've already seen that he's like this.
Yeah.
It's not a surprise for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I gotta say that I mean I'm fidgety, I move a lot. So for me to see somebody who could sit still for hours together, especially during jury selection, when I could see him more clearly, I was just like, how is he doing that? He's just not moving. He's not even looking at the people who are speaking. He's just in his own world.
Well, there it is right there. He's in
True.
his own world.
He's in his own
And I
world.
think that is pretty much the sum up. I
Yeah.
mean, if you had to summarize this guy, I think that's it. He is in his own world. He created his own alternate world. He is in an alternate reality. This is the guy who had an alternate reality going on, and for a very long time, a very long time. And I really think that Lori did too. So this is like the meeting of two people who
Mm,
don't want to live in the world that they're living in, whatever that is. You know, um, a uh, a dull marriage, if that's Chad, if
yeah.
that's what he felt like, he had known her since high school, et cetera, et cetera. He's not feeling satisfied. He's feeling that his romantic self, the interior, is not getting fed by Tammy. She's not willing to go on every fantasy, you know, journey.
Yeah.
And I think that Lori is really wanting to have a, an experience where she's swept away, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think these are two people who were bored.
Mm,
They were seeking the divine to, kind of have a connection that was otherworldly.
mm-hmm.
And that's how I see this couple, otherworldly.
I see what you mean.
And I don't know if that happens when, I mean, we haven't really brought this up, but, I don't know if that's what happens when you're told certain kinds of religious ideology, however, philosophy,
Yeah.
the stories of, um, you know, the end of times.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, shoot.
So I do with Laurie, I can see the fantasy bit or, being in her own world and her motivations behind it. That is more obvious to me than Chad. And I'm going to be blunt here, but he is not, in my opinion, very creative. I can't imagine him having a whole fantasy world where it's not in touch with reality just because the guy, to me, is not very creative. Like, I can't imagine that. I can't imagine what that would even look like if he's sitting there and fantasizing. What could it possibly be other than the reality that he sees in front of him, because the guy is not very creative, in my opinion? Like, what do you think his fantasy world would look like?
Well, I think he started to live it.
You think he believes all this?
I do.
Oh,
I do, with the caveat that he was not sure. I think there are parts where
mm,
this is very complicated, but I think he wanted it to be true.
okay. I can see that.
And I think if other people start joining in, it makes that more real. And I will say this too. This is the thing that I will say on this. And this is a very challenging topic because I think that's what the question is in everybody's mind who knows anything about this case. Like, did they really believe all this?
Yeah.
I think Lori did.
Yes.
Chad's a little trickier. But
Yes.
I think the thing with Chad is that I think that he had a strong faith.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's a man. I do think he was a man of faith. In
Okay.
other words, whatever he was brought up with in terms of the teachings of the religion, I think he believed in those. And I think that he believed them very deeply and profoundly.
Okay.
So there's some confusion about, you know, the difference between what are the teachings in which a lot of things have, like visitations, divine
Mm-hmm.
revelations, visions,
Yeah.
messages, and all of that.
Yeah.
I think that that's called the supernatural, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um, Even in divine texts, it would be called supernatural, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel like Chad, that was a dangerous idea for Chad.
Mm.
I think that there's a religiosity, in Chad and Lori that has like wreaked havoc for both of them.
Yeah.
So I think that he thinks. So, for example, what I'm trying to say, prayers are real.
Right.
Communication with God is real. Communication with angels is real. Communication with Jesus is real.
Mm.
Communication with saints and seers are real. All those things are very much a real thing for both Chad and Lori. I think that Chad felt lonely. I don't know why I'm going to say this, but I do think that Chad is somebody who comes across to me, and again, this is my opinion, this is what I feel, this is
Mm-hmm.
what, I do think that Chad has been lonely probably pretty much his whole life. I think he was a lonely child, and I think he became a lonely adult.
Mm.
And I think that part of his comfort,
Mm-hmm.
the way he soothed himself, was telling him that he was just a little bit better, a little more spiritual, a
Yeah.
little more unique or different, or a little more committed to his faith. That
Yes.
he had a calling, he had a mission, he was going to find his purpose, that one day, and I think that's how he got through whatever his trials and tribulations were, you know. So I think that this was a running inner dialogue
Mm-hmm.
for most of his life. Like if you even take the Heather Daybell interviews on Hidden True Crime,
Yeah.
one of the things that I got from that, or my takeaway was that I think Chad, he advised his brother not to marry Heather.
Yes.
And to me, that was so telling. Um, he's the eldest. He's the one in the know. He's the one who can see through things. Isn't that what that means? If you tell your sibling, like, hey, I don't think she's the right woman for you, it means that you possess knowledge and wisdom, that the other person does not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you're not really seeing it the way
Yeah.
it truly is. And
Right.
I think that's Chad's MO for almost everybody he'd come across. So I always find it really interesting that everybody says how humble he was. Was he?
Yeah. That's an
Was he
interesting.
humble?
Yeah. I think
Or
this.
was he polite?
Mm,
What, this is a big question in my head. Like, why is that he's, like, I think that sometimes people who are quiet and reserved can be
yes.
called humble. Like, I
Right.
think people take that as being humble.
Right.
I'm not saying that he wasn't humble. Maybe the fact that they struggled financially played a part, you know, like in creating a sense of humility. I don't know. But it's shocking because I do think that he felt like he was misunderstood. That created a sense of him being special. That's how he coped.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really out there, I know.
No, I'm
In
with you.
the, in the sense that, like, how can one say this? But, taking everything that I have read,
Yeah.
seen, heard about Chad and his life and his family and, the things that he said,
Yeah.
I really feel like I think he always thought of himself as a prophet.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for that long-winded answer. It's like,
No.
I mean, I'm very passionate about that. So,
Yeah.
that's the thing that's been, but, it's one of those things that just
Yeah.
makes you wonder.
Yeah, it's one of those things that will make you go in circles and you have to rant about it in order to get somewhere. I'm totally with you.
Yep.
I actually, the humble point, I do agree with you because someone who's humble wouldn't think that they're so special and, worthy of being a prophet. Yeah, it could be true, but I don't think that'll be their uh, defining purpose in life. I also think, like what you said about whether he believed in all of this, and you brought up his brother who wanted to marry Heather Daybell. I feel part of that is that because Laurie would have fed into that part of him that wanted to be so special, it would have uh, it would have attracted him to her and made him believe it even more. Especially if everybody else in his life until that point didn't really believe that he was special. So I feel like part of that is that she fed into his fantasy or his idea that he wanted to be special when nobody else had done it to that same extent. Like
Yeah,
even
I mean, I do think that, you know, Lori came along and recognized his specialness.
can we say so-called specialness?
Well, I mean, she paid attention to him.
Yeah, and vice versa.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think we understand that. I mean, I think it was Adam, if I remember correctly, Adam Cox,
Uh-huh.
Lori's brother,
Yes.
who said that, Lori loved attention. And he said, I know that because I
Mm.
also love it. That's why I was on the radio.
Eh,
That's why I do what I do.
yeah.
But so. you kind of got this spark plug kind of woman walking by who
Mm-hmm.
wants to meet you, says she loves your books,
Mm-hmm.
and that is gotta feel really good to Chad because everybody else in his family doesn't seem to really want to even read them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like two people who need someone desperately to see how special they are.
Yeah. I just had this thought and it made me really sad.
Hmm.
Which is like, what was he not getting from Tammy? Like, I get Tammy. She was like, she seemed stable, a good mom, a good wife. Like, what I, it just makes me sad to think, what was he not getting from her that he,
I mean, it is super sad.
yeah.
I agree with you. I've had that thought too. I mean, I mean, she seems like a really great person, and she doesn't seem dull to me.
Mm-mm.
Like she's got a sparkle going in the
Mhm.
photographs of her, and there's something very warming about her in those, like in photos.
Yeah.
And I think she was giving it her all. And I mean, this is somebody raising lots of children and
Yeah.
making things happen, and go like it's so odd to me, but it sometimes it's really hard to say. And I know that there are people out there who would be like, well, obviously it's sex, you know,
Right.
that that wasn't happening in that department. If it was, and that's just pure speculation. And I also think it's, not all Tammy is or was. And
Right.
kind of, I don't think that Tammy met the fantasy. That's it.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, that would make sense.
Like, why? Like, I think it's like this. It's the idea of what makes a wife,
Hmm.
when you're the age that Chad was, which was fairly young, getting married, right?
Yeah.
What you think you should marry versus what you should probably marry.
Yeah. Yep.
So, I mean, whatever I've read a lot and listened a lot, learned a lot about the Mormon faith because of this case. And what I do understand is that, you know, the values of what it is you want in a partner are pretty prescribed. And, let's face it, there's a lot of overlap here between I experienced in India, where these are the qualities that make a good wife. And at 22, 23, whatever,
Yeah.
you think those things that, oh yeah, I want a wife who's sweet. I want a wife who has food ready when I come home. It's
Mm.
according and prescribed by the religion, in this instance. What makes I mean, there's a pretty defined set of characteristics.
Yeah.
And so it's like Tammy is going to be a great wife. But
Yeah.
that's a role at the end of the day, right? It's not a person.
Right.
They're just roles that a person can play. So I think it's very confusing because when two people marry, out of what is going to be the roles, they
Hmm.
don't know what to do after a point when
Yeah.
they're fulfilled their roles.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, the fact that he compared himself to Harry Potter, living underneath the stairs,
Yeah.
that says so much about this guy. I mean, like that you could even think, like watching that movie, that your life was like Harry Potter's and you're the age Chad is, and
Yeah.
he's identifying with a boy.
Yeah.
He's identifying with a boy,
Right.
and it's a hey Chad, it's a work of fiction. Like, this is a work of fiction. The way these guys move in and out of realities,
Yeah.
that like Lori and her Twilight series stuff, and
Yeah.
I mean, to think that Chad is watching Harry Potter and thinking, I'm that guy, I'm that kid,
Right.
you know? I'm a
And the
kid.
poses and stuff.
I'm a kid living in the stairs and but Harry Potter is the special, unique one.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he launched, like as if,
Yeah.
was his name Haggard or what people would kill me for not knowing. I
Yeah.
can't remember. I love that character.
Yeah.
But it's like, Chad's waiting for his mystical letter flying through the air that, hey, you're actually the child of this amazing
Right.
wizard and you are going to be even greater than he. That's what Chad wants. I mean, can you imagine how much that movie and books, those books and movie, whichever one was first, whatever, would have fueled him?
Yeah, especially as Harry becomes more and more the center of attention as the books go by. I mean, there's no denying that.
I mean, what do you think of that? That of all things that this man chooses to say about having to go back to Tammy, you know,
Yeah,
after being in the arms of Lori, how
right.
did that strike you?
Yeah, that was like him uh saying that he is living with what the Dursleys, Dudley Dursley, and the parents who were pretty rude and mean to Harry.
The Muggles.
Muggles, yeah.
I mean, that's the thing about that. We're talking about two different worlds, right? Did Chad look at all of us like we're Muggles?
Probably. I mean, why couldn't he call himself Gandalf the Grey from Lord of the Rings? Why Harry Potter? Like,
I
you know,
know.
grow up a little bit. Just a touch.
Well, and here's the other thing, right? The whole thing is about, Harry.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, the
Yeah.
whole thing is about Harry.
Yeah.
I think Chad wanted the whole thing to be about Chad. And I feel terrible saying this about another human being. I honestly do. You know, like I don't know anything about this man. I have not met him. I don't know. I mean, all I know is what the people around him, are saying and whatever his actions were and the phone calls we've heard, and everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just got to say that this, why did this man needed to like that? It's like a hunger, don't you think? Like a hunger to be someone.
Yeah. Yeah, throughout his life. And this was like the culmination.
Well, here's a question, okay? If you look
Okay.
at Chad, prior to Lori, and you look at Chad, hanging out at the poolside in Hawaii, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, what do you think? Like, I mean, it's a little night and day.
You read my mind. I was just going to say that. Yeah. He's like empowered in a different way when he's with Laurie. He's like almost feels invincible.
That's a good word. Yeah. It's almost like she's the battery pack, you
Yes.
know?
Yes. Yes. Love that description. Yes.
I mean, they're both now separated, and have been, for a long time now.
You mean physically, right?
Hmm.
They're still married though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, as far as we all know.
As far as we all know.
Um,
Yeah.
don't you think he's reliving these moments with Lori?
Um, I was thinking about that. I'm kind of torn. I wonder if he maybe blames her, or if he thinks it was worth it. Like I part of me is
Hmm.
like maybe he blames her for putting him in this mess and not obviously not owning up to his responsibility. Again, this is just my opinion based on what I see, but I feel like part of this is I was put in this mess. It's not my fault really. I didn't do anything. I
I
wonder.
mean, do you think this is like the earthquake situation where it's like, okay, it didn't happen in 2015? Do you think he's sitting there thinking, well, this is all going to work out, just not this year? Like
Yeah,
recasting,
yeah,
you know, the, like, okay, it's not too, it'll be next year. Oh, it'll be next year. Does he still think in his head that this is all going to come right?
yeah. Could be. I know you had mentioned this to me, and it was so. Um, it was on point. I thought this whole thing about being crucified just before he
Oh,
becomes
yeah.
yeah
Yeah.
he becomes Jesus like. So maybe he thinks of it as that moment, which is very
Like his waiting for his resurrection.
his resurrection. Yes, yeah. So maybe this is how he sees it, and
Right.
that could be one way to explain if he does get the death penalty. Like that's how he'll explain away the any cognitive dissonance in his mind that it fits, it makes sense, this is how it's supposed to go.
It's interesting to think of this person who lived for such a brief, shining moment. The inner Chad finally got a chance to be out in the fresh air. The Chad that's been living underneath the stairs, or the
Yeah.
Chad who is internalized and kept quiet and silent, um, who's retreated inwardly, who
Mm-hmm.
for a brief time finds someone, and he comes out of that interior and starts feeling, a part of the world, even though he's creating a different world. And he's out and has that freedom and that empowerment and that sense of, like I'm someone
Mm-hmm.
for this brief period of time. And it's like it all gets taken away. And now we're seeing this guy sitting at that table, day after day. And he's back to the retreat. So that means he's in there somewhere. What do you think of that? If I said that to you, as how I might see that, what would you say?
So you're saying that the
I mean, it's like the guy who he's always been within inside of him, but couldn't fully actualize
yeah.
in real terms, you know. And this woman comes along, and he gets that strength, he gets that courage, he
Yeah.
gets that sense of worth or empowerment
Mm-hmm.
to actually start becoming the person he believes and aspires to be. He believes himself to be this person all along,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the skinny Chad, the hip Chad, the, leader Chad,
Yeah.
the diviner Chad, you know, and, he's living that for this brief period of time with Lori.
Yes.
And then it all comes to a halt, comes to an end, and he has to become the old guy, the
Mm.
former guy. It all goes away. I think that's deeply painful if that's true.
Yeah, that's a really interesting. That's an interesting one.
I mean, can you imagine how euphoric he would have felt? He's being listened to, he's being respected, he is the agreed upon leader, you know, everybody's hanging on his, his every word, every,
Yeah.
you know, he's got this, what he considers to be a hot woman next to him.
Yeah.
He's getting money,
Yeah.
he's now got money happening. I mean, can you imagine how euphoric
Yeah.
that an experience that would have been?
Yeah.
And it would be like, see, the thing I thought about me all along is true.
Yeah.
I'm the man. I'm like the cool guy. I'm the popular guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Finally, the cool kid in high school.
I'm
Yeah.
finally the leader of the, whatever. The,
Yeah.
the what's it, the football team or something. I'm the captain. Whatever that is.
That's an interesting one. So I feel there might be, based on whatever I see, again, this is just my opinion, like there might be a bit of a clash going on in him, in the sense that the reality is making him see that, well, this is not the truth anymore. You're not this cool guy. You're actually on trial and you could potentially get the death penalty. But at the same time, I also feel like maybe there's a clash somewhere where it's like, these muggles don't get it. If I am put to death, I'm just even more like Jesus. It just proves my plan even more. So I wonder if there's like a push and pull going on.
That's
And
interesting. Yeah.
some of that might even show up in how he presents the flat affect and but suddenly coming alive. I don't know. This is just what I feel when I look at him.
Okay, so let's play that out. Let's say that we go back to the Emma moment, the body cam video,
Yes.
when they're searching the backyard and Emma comes back to him. And let me just repeat this whole thing so we can play it fully out. I
Uh-huh.
was saying to you that I wondered if it was like what I am looking at when I see that is I'm thinking that Emma and the children have been told that, you know, that very much like the Last Supper, where
Mhm.
Jesus is telling the apostles that, you know, hey, uh, I'm going to be betrayed. It'll be by you, one of you.
Mm.
Um, and
Oh,
he's laying out the whole thing,
yeah.
and that that they're going to come for him and be
Yeah.
arrested, you know, and that, and I'm really trying to paraphrase all the, I'm just trying to get to the heart of it.
Yes.
And so he tells his children that, hey, remember when, the story of Jesus when, the Roman soldiers come. But before that, there's the Last Supper, and he tells his apostles that he will be, you know,
Yeah.
persecuted and etc.
Yeah.
And, this gets them seeing him. So he's been doing predictions. The children, I mean, clearly Tammy went along, like, even when she was resistant, she went along to Rexburg,
Yes.
right? She fell in line to that degree. I
Yes.
think for a period of time that, and this is a topic for another time, but there's a really interesting thing there where it seemed like for a period of time, Chad was trying to understand whether he could keep his wife and have Lori, but that's for another time. But
Yeah.
he basically prepared his children for this arrest, for this potential arrest. He knew they were coming. He knew the police were going to be searching, and
Hmm.
he knew that if they, found something, then he was going away.
Yes.
So the way that Emma was, so that that that's sort of my theory, that he presented himself in a Jesus kind of way, of like, I'm like Jesus. I'm going to get arrested. I didn't do anything. I'm innocent, but I will be persecuted. So, okay, let's say that that's how it was. Can he hang on to that and think that, okay, like Jesus on the cross, that happened for so many days? I'm going to get to the end of
Yeah.
this, end of it. Oh, sorry, hang on. Hang on.
Alexa?
And so, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry if I I think I may have unknowingly
no, 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 no.
that was your thought.
Um, Yeah, that's my daily reminder.
No, no, no.
Um,
I'm sorry if I stole your theory. I
oh no, I don't think you
had so
stole my
many.
theory. Come on.
You had
Seriously?
so
No, you were trying to say that, I mean, that's how I understood what you were saying, that you were saying, if that is true,
right.
he
Yes.
doing this now? Is this just the rest of the Jesus story? And he's just,
Yeah.
getting persecuted. He's at trial and he's, hanging on his cross, basically.
Yeah. Yes. You get me.
Yeah, I totally understand about that.
Yeah.
That's a
Okay.
good question, like, is he still in that mindset when faced with so much reality?
Yeah. That's a good question.
I mean, this is a guy who can live in his own interiors for a very long time because, he waited until Lori showed up, right?
Yeah. I think I would be curious to see what it's like for him in jail, like who he's talking to, what they're reinforcing.
I wonder if he's giving blessings in prison.
Oh, yeah, somehow there's not much on that, right? Out
No.
there. There's no information like what that's like.
Well, I think that, some of the recent, like the phone call that came out recently with the two of these guys, I mean, Lori has a better grip on reality, even though she's more disconnected from it, ironically.
Oh,
I
interesting.
mean, she at least was questioning, what was going on. Like, why are we in jail? Like, why am I in jail right now? Like,
Yeah.
is this part of the plan? I was never told about this, and if I had known about it, I don't think I would have gone along with all of this.
I haven't gotten there yet, but that would be interesting to listen to.
Yeah.
Because who would
So
expect that from her?
I know, right?
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
So where are we with this guy? Like,
All over the place.
yeah.
I mean, which is how it is, which is just what this case is like.
I think that, we're gonna have to stay tuned.
Yes.
I do think that it is hard to imagine that this gentleman is going to get up on the stand. And I say gentleman because I'm a gentlewoman.
Yeah.
Um, it
Yeah.
is really hard to imagine that Chad Daybell is going to get up on that witness box and, we may never know. This may be one of those things where we never know. I mean, we're going to keep trying to know.
Right.
We're going to keep trying to, understand it.
Yeah. And find the darkness, the truth that lies behind the darkness.
Yeah. Behind the darkness lies the truth,
Yeah.
right?
A little plug.
A little plug for the channel.
Yeah. But no,
Yeah.
I don't think he'll testify. It's not going to be, I know this is the third time I'm saying Alec Murdoch, but it's not going to be how how he was, like just eager to get up on the stand. I can't imagine Chad testifying and putting himself in a position where he could be cross-examined.
When death row is in sight, he
Mm-hmm.
might be willing to try anything. If he can do his humble routine, um, I shouldn't say it like that. That's very pejorative, but I would say that, you know, it may come to a point where he has nothing to lose.
Mm. No, but it makes sense. Like he would have to do the humble routine, right? Like that sort of seems the point that is being emphasized. I mean, obviously he is innocent until proven guilty, but if he does get up on the stand, what else could he possibly do? That would be a pleasure to watch, but I don't know.
I wonder, I think it would make a lot of people angry. That's what they risk. See, it's not so much that how does he perform on the stand, as that for the people who have decided that they're already sort of seeing the evidence and thinking, okay, well, I can't imagine how the defense is going to show us anything that is going to move us away from two dead children in the backyard.
Yeah.
Um, don't you think that it 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 they've got nothing to lose? In other words, if you truly believe that you're gonna, lose your life, won't you take the last chance you have to turn it around?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine it because I can't think that. I mean, it's like the Murdoch case in that way. I was like, are you joking?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you should sit down there. You might have a better chance.
Right.
I really thought that was a big mistake when it came to Alec.
I
In
agree.
this case, I don't think you have much to lose. You need to explain yourself if you want. I don't think that, I mean, at least where we are today,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's enough there to feel confident that there's a hung jury here. I really don't. And I know that you have to, get further along, but
Yeah.
I mean, I really am wondering whether that is going to be,
Mm.
something that, I mean, it seems so unlikely because, you could say, well, definitely question number one is, please explain to me in your own words how it is that JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan ended up in your backyard.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, if they're going to sit there and say, Lori made me do it, we're
Mm.
going to need to hear from him. I just can't imagine, like, the kids hardly knew her, right?
Right.
So who knows Lori, who's going to be up there for Chad Daybell? I guess we're going to find out.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
So what do you think?
I
Have
also
we been in the, go ahead.
sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
I was just thinking that maybe part of the reason why Pryor has so many of prosecution's witnesses on his um, list too is because he doesn't necessarily want to put Chad on the stand. I don't know.
Well, it's a common tactic that defense lawyers will put everybody in the kitchen sink listed on there, they'll
Oh.
put, Kim Kardashian on that list, you know,
Yeah,
because what it does is it makes you believe they're going to call those witnesses, and it's just a form of intimidating. Um,
I see.
it's just it can be a technique for intimidation.
Yeah,
I really don't think that there are many people on that list.
yeah, me neither.
I mean, you're going to have your experts to try to, redo the autopsy. You're going to have,
Right.
those kinds of things. But I mean, I just don't see that there are people who can say, yeah, Lori made him do it, which is part of their defense.
Yeah,
That is the defense that they have offered in this case. That is what they believe to be true. That's what they want the jury to believe.
yeah,
So who are these magical people
yeah,
who, I mean, who can speak, who are on Chad's side, right? Who are willing to, testify for Chad in this case,
mm,
who also knew Lori well enough or watched this interaction enough
yeah,
to say Lori made him do it when, Melanie Gibb has already declared herself a prosecution witness,
yeah.
right? Zulema, right?
Oh, she testified?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
So, you know, how, Alex is dead. And
Yeah,
of course, he wouldn't have testified to that anyway. Um, who else? Who is going to get up there to say, yeah, she cast a spell on him? I can't, I don't know who that would be. So that's why I'm saying that I still would think that their best move is to let the jury have what they have. But you haven't, how you're going to prove your defense that she made him do it. I have not seen anything.
Yeah.
I can't see that. And the only other person is Chad. She made me do it.
Yeah. Tomorrow onwards, we find out.
That's right.
Yeah,
So is that for it for today?
I think so.
You're gonna wrap it up and visit this world on another day?
Yeah. Sounds like a good idea.
Are we gonna go beneath the stairs on another day to visit Chad's?
Go into
Oh
portal.
man, that just makes me so sad as a human being that another human being feels that way about their life. It's sad.
Yeah.
This is a tragedy.
Yeah, on
I
every.
mean, so many lives gone for what?
Yeah.
I mean, if there's anything to say about this case, is that it is just heartbreaking that these two people intersected.
Yeah. So true.
Like, what if she wasn't there that day? What if he wasn't there that day? This doesn't happen. So, on that note, on that cheerful note,
Yeah.
all right, well, it was good chatting.
Yeah. That was fun. Our first episode.